Thanks, Peter. Really good to see everyone today. As well as my role as Aberdeen City IGB Chair, I've also worked for over 25 years in the third sector around services for problem drug and alcohol users and also for women experiencing gender-based violence. So that's taught me a lot about trauma-informed practice and really has made me really firm in my belief that trauma-informed practice leads to effective engagement with all people. So as an IJB chair, I've taken this into how I work at the IJB, and my approach is really that trauma-informed practice shouldn't really be seen at all as a siloed way of working, another box that we all have to tick as IJB chairs, but really it's a way of working that can underpin all our practices, our policies and our systems, and it actually supports the existing strategic IJB priorities that we already have. Next slide, please. So we've already had petals and we've had a tree, so I'm using an onion. So if we think of our IJB and our local health and social care partnership as an onion with lots of layers in it, and at the centre of the onion are the people that we're caring for and we're providing services for, and there's lots of layers around that, including how we consult with our local population, who's around our strategic planning groups, and then the outer layer being the IJB itself. And I really believe that we need to have, the whole onion has to be trauma informed, and we have to live the petals that Sandra spoke about through all our interactions. So today I want to just give you a few examples of how we've done that in Aberdeen IJB through our approach to our culture and leadership as an IJB, how we have used trauma-informed approach to tackle inequalities through how we engage with our local communities, and also provide some examples of how this is leading to better quality of services being experienced by people, you know, right at the centre that we're all here to serve. But I would also just put out there a disclaimer at the start. I'm not saying at all that we've got this absolutely nailed as an IJB. We've got lots more work to keep doing to widen awareness of trauma-informed practice and make sure that our trauma-informed approach isn't just seen as something that frontline services need to do, but that leadership at all layers within our onion need to understand trauma-informed practice and understand why it really is important. So next slide, please. So I hope that what I share maybe just generates some ideas for your own IJB to think about, and it may be that you're already doing a fair bit of this. So the first area that I wanted to tell you about was our approach to culture and leadership. So for me, there's a real central importance of building relationships in our culture and our leadership approach at the IJB. You may well know, and I think probably heard from what you've heard from Shamela and Sandra, that evidence shows that safe and supportive relationships are the best predictors of recovery from traumatic experiences. But we also know that the importance of strong relationships and creating psychological safety is a key factor in effective leadership in complex systems. So you'll probably be familiar with the work of Michael West and others. So for me, trauma-informed practice absolutely aligns with a compassionate, collaborative leadership approach. And I'm pleased that that is very much present in the North East system of health and care. So for me, that's kind of a foundation that we can set in our IJB. And if you think again of the onion, that our approach, how we interact with each other, how we ask questions, how we engage with the rest of the system influences the wider culture throughout the organisation. And some deliberate things we've done, I've just put them on this slide here. We've deliberately put a real value on informal spaces, created space where anyone in our IJB can ask any half-baked daft lassie question without feeling that they're going to be judged in any way. We have deliberately reduced jargon, acronyms at the IJB in our papers, and we have removed use of titles in our IJB interactions, so everyone is known and referred to as in their first name. We're really aiming there for all voices to be heard equally. We make absolutely no difference whether it's a voting member or a non-voting member. We've also had some development sessions with our IJB and our leadership team where we have worked on getting to know each other more behind our labels, more about the people that we are. And one really interesting example we've had is we've all presented boom boards. I don't know if folk are aware of boom boards, but the boom stands for best out of me. And each person on the IJB and the leadership team has been asked to present just a one page, like a PowerPoint with pictures, which tell a story that defines them, what's their likes, dislikes, and generally share some personal elements that people are comfortable with to help us connect as people around the IJB table, and to make sure that we get the best out of each other through working together. And that's been really effective, and we'll carry on doing that. We also do a grounding exercise at the start of each IJB. Usually we start with a short film, maybe 5 minutes or so, which just reminds people why we are all together as an IJB, what our focus is, and helps people leave all the other meetings that they've been to, hopefully outside, and focus on our IJB priorities. One of those examples that we've done is we've actually showed the Opening Doors short film as an exercise at the start of one of our IJBs recently. So you might think, well, why does this matter, and what difference has this all made? Well, my strong belief is that through taking a deliberate approach to our culture and our leadership style, that has created psychological safety within our IJB and our leadership team that's enabled high quality conversations to take place, so that we've been able to challenge and scrutinise effectively, and we have taken really brave decisions around our strategic service redesign. So it's been really important, and something we'll continue to work on. Next slide, please. So I could spend all day talking about this graphic, but I won't. I'm sure that IJB colleagues will be familiar with what's laid out here. And with many other IJBs in Aberdeen, we recognise that some people will need additional support in order to achieve the same health outcomes. So we need to design our services which consider the diversity of our people and how we can remove barriers to engage in an effective outcomes from services. Obviously, ultimately, our longer term aim is to remove the systemic barriers through our role as anchor institutes, but that's really for a different day. But just wanted to put that up there. So a trauma-informed approach tells us, as we've heard already, that people who have experienced complex trauma may feel unsafe in settings out with their home. They can have difficulty forming trusting relationships, and therefore can have less effective engagement with health and care services when they are not trauma-informed. So if we're really serious about narrowing gaps and inequalities, when considering redesign, our consultation and engagement approach really needs to ensure we hear seldom heard voices, and put a real deliberate focus on hearing people who are furthest from our health and care system at the moment. So next slide. So how we've done this in Aberdeen is we've taken a deliberate approach where we recognise that we need to amplify seldom heard voices, because we believe that we've got most to learn from people that are furthest from health and care, and people who tend to experience poorer outcomes. And these three here are just examples of how we're doing that through our planning processes. So the first one there is we have an equalities and human rights subgroup. This underpins all our strategic decision-making processes and includes representatives on it from our Grampian Racial Equality Council, the Scottish Refugee Council, and also people with lived experience. We're currently reaching out to our faith community to look for representation, because we recognise that our local faith community are more likely to have contact with people who have experienced complex trauma, and we want to pull their views and experiences into that group. We all do health inequality impact assessments for all our service redesigns. We have put specific importance in our health inequality impact assessment on specific groups. So not only protected characteristics, but people who are at risk of being homeless, people with substance use issues, and people on low incomes. And through doing that, we believe that will help us hear and understand more about people who have experienced complex trauma. And the third example here is that we have 3 place-based locality empowerment groups, which we call our legs in Aberdeen. So we've got 3 legs, which is maybe not as many we're supposed to have, but they're based in our south, central and north localities in the city. And that's where we're proactively engaging with local members of the community on an ongoing basis around our plans. And that's really about the importance of building on, forming relationships, building trust, and avoiding sort of drive-by consultations where people are asked something and then they never really hear what happens. But it's that building trust. And interestingly, we're hearing that, so our legs have been in operation for 3 years now. And over time, we're seeing that trust is really being built. People that are coming to our legs are sharing really personal and deep issues with the partnership staff. And that has led to wider changes in services that we would never have been able to pick up through just a questionnaire or a kind of the standard way of maybe doing maybe doing sort of questionnaire type consultations, but having these legs that are there and where there's regular contact with the same people has really helped deepen our discussions and conversations with people in our communities. And there's direct examples of how we've been able to draw in experience from some older people to help with GP communications. We've developed a more nuanced approach in service about how we engage better with people who are sensory impaired, just for example, but lots of good stuff coming out of that. So I think what I'm trying to demonstrate here is our overall approach at the IJB ensures that our decision making at the IJB is underpinned by a process which is informed by the views of people who are more likely to have experienced complex trauma, and we're able to evidence this at the IJB so that we can be confident in our decision making that we've considered people with complex trauma in our processes. Next slide, please. So I suppose the key question is this really making a difference to how people experience services? Well, the first thing I'd say, and you'll see here, safety, choice, collaboration, trust and empowerment. These are the petals on the flower that Sandra showed earlier. The first thing I would say is that these are principles that everyone, whether or not they've experienced complex trauma or not, these are principles that are about having a high quality service. Everyone needs to feel safe when engaging with a service. Everyone wants to have choice and feel that they're a collaborator, they're empowered to make decisions and that they can trust their service. So by being trauma informed, we're actually developing services that are high quality, which will benefit everyone. Next slide, please. So just a few examples of how this is working in Aberdeen. Hopefully you can read that, but I just wanted to put a few examples up. The first one is we recently had an inspection from the Care Inspectorate for our Justice Social Work services, and that was a really positive inspection, and the service was specifically praised for its trauma-informed approach. And what was interesting from that is that this is, from the service point of view, this is really about really practical things that services can do, the provision of flexible opening times, WhatsApp support group, women-only services, seeing people in their own communities where they feel safe. It's these type of things that really make the difference for people often that have experienced complex trauma. So really good to hear that coming through from Care Inspectorate work. Also, and I'm sure other IGBs will have done similar, our approach to vaccination delivery is where we have worked with our third sector and trusted groups to bring vaccinations out to people and to deliver that in places where they feel safe, and that's had a really positive impact. We're in the process of developing a new dynamic database for domestic abuse victims, which has been created with people with lived experience. And this is providing an online platform to support people who are experiencing and living through domestic violence, where they can access anonymously support, advice. They can hear about experience from other people, and if they choose to, they can access direct help through the website. So just an example of something that's really been led by people themselves and helped us improve our service delivery there. for this presentation today, I reached out to our GP community to see how they were getting on around trauma-informed practice. And I thought I would share with you that what the feedback highlighted was, again, it's often really small things that can make a big difference to engagement. So our GP colleagues were advising that the importance when staff have been trauma trained is that and that's really important, that it's not just GPs, but actually often there's reception staff that are getting trained on trauma-informed practice, has really helped staff reframe their thinking. So when someone comes in and they can be difficult to engage with or upset or angry, rather than thinking what's wrong with you, to reframe that to think what has happened to you in the past. And that's been a really important way that general practice have taken on board a trauma-informed approach, and I think has really helped many staff deal in a more productive way and a more supportive way for people when they present in difficulty. The other things that GPs, the GP colleagues provided to me was what's as important is the how that we engage with people as well as what we do. So their advice being that clinicians and practice staff can start with simple things like a welcoming hello, good to see you today, good to hear from you, how can we help you today? To finish each contact by thanking people for attending, thanking them for phoning, to think about the waiting room environment. Are there quiet areas? Does the environment make people feel comfortable? Think about the wording on signage and practices, the way language is used in letters, the wording that's used in web pages. All these things are really important for helping engagement in general practice to engage better with people who are trauma informed. Conscious of time, so I'm just going to jump along a little bit, and there's loads of other examples, but next slide, please. So back to the onion, and I suppose what I'm hoping that I've got across is that a trauma-informed approach is not just about service delivery. It's a way of doing things at all levels, putting value on creating safe spaces, creating choice, empowering people, collaborating with our whole system. It's a leadership approach which drives effective change as well as a litmus test for high quality services. So I think as IJB leaders, we can do a lot to lead in this area and support this really important agenda for our health and social care teams. Next slide, please. So I think just to finish with, I thought what I might find useful if I was on the other end of this presentation is to think about, have you paid deliberate attention to your own culture to ensure all voices are heard equally around your IGB table? How are you building in trauma-sensitive approaches into your consultation and redesign processes? Is your local workforce getting training on trauma-informed approaches, including your leaders, again, at all levels through your onion? And do you know who your local trauma champions and trainers are? Because there will be resources locally to help you with this. So I'll finish there, really just hoping that I've sparked some ideas, and I know I've rattled through that, so happy to be contacted after today if anybody wants to find out more of what we're doing in Aberdeen. Thanks.